Hi everyone, it's Dr. Ramani and welcome back to this YouTube channel on narcissism and narcissistic relationships and the stuff that happens in these relationships and healing from these relationships. Gaslighting is cruel. Today we're going to talk about one of the cruelest gaslighting moves a person can do. So, you're in a toxic relationship of any kind. Narcissistic, antagonistic, toxic, use whatever word works for you, okay? Gaslighting, sadly, becomes your normal in one of these relationships. And you're doing your self-education, right? You're learning about these various toxic dynamics and tactics and all of that. And you're getting even better at detecting them. Gaslighting by design messes with your head. It leaves you with a sort of permanent state of self-doubt. You're thinking through all the angles to figure out if you're not responsible in some way, wanting to record and write and ensure you commit to memory what happened so you can unpack it later, cross-check it against the evidence. Maybe you go to therapy to figure out, is this me? Or you're so confused, right? Or whether the gaslighter is the one who's right. And to find out from the therapist, is there something wrong with you? But there's one gaslighty phrase that we often don't unpack. And I can see that it might be one of the most nefarious and awful of all because of the downstream effects. Are you ready for what this gaslighting line is? You might even drop in the comments if you think you know what it is. No one is going to believe you. So let's set this up as an example. You confront the narcissistic person, never a good idea, but you do, about something they did. Let's go big. Your friend saw your partner kissing or otherwise behaving inappropriately with another person at a bar. They even show you a grainy picture they managed to take before your friend got out of there. You confront your partner. Your partner denies it, tells you you are insane, and then they say, no one is going to believe you. Or, we'll try another scenario. You have a narcissistic parent who everybody actually thinks is a perfectly fine person, maybe even be generous or takes care of people in the family financially, whatever it is they do that makes people think that they're okay. But you know how invalidating they are. One day you're having an argument or a confrontation and you let that family member, the parent, know, I am done. I am finally going to tell certain people in the family that you've lied about this or that. And that narcissistic parent turns to you and says, no one is going to believe you. This tactic works for narcissistic people who are really good at wearing their masks in public, but being so careful and not being seen when they take that mask off in private. So they really are able to maintain a very gregarious and validation-seeking public face. It may be that people like this, they meet this person in your life, they think they're generous. They might be awed by their power. They think this is just a great person who has it all together. They're cool. They may be impressed by their success. But basically, and this is why this whole narcissism thing is such a mind F, is that lots of people may actually really admire and adore this narcissistic person. They may literally think they're upstanding, righteous, just super great, cool, awesome people. And at the same time, lots of people who are in narcissistic and gaslighting relationships, especially before you figure out what is going on, figure out what's happening to you, you may be sliding into your own despair. You may feel increasingly anxious, sad, reassurance-seeking, confused, helpless, self-blaming, self-doubting. Most survivors pre-knowing about narcissism do believe that there's something very wrong with they themselves. And if they have the bad luck of encountering, for example, a therapist who doesn't understand narcissistic abuse, that can only magnify that. Or it could be an HR person, whoever. In addition, lots of people in narcissistic relationships become quite isolated and cut off from other people. They may become distanced from friendships or other sources of support. This comment, "no one will believe you," out the gate would paint you sort of as being delusional, right? As though anything you say to other people will sound psychotic to other people. And that dismantling of you, no one's going to listen to you, no one's going to believe you. That's what qualifies a statement like this, not only as gaslighting, but really, really pernicious gaslighting. Meanwhile, the narcissistic person may continue to go through the world as a grandiose raconteur, accumulating successes and admiration and friends and adulation. So when the day comes that you do call the narcissistic person out on anything, for them to push back and say that no one's going to believe you, well, that can actually ring true for you and magnify the helplessness, hopelessness, powerlessness, sadness, and anxiety you feel in this relationship. Because sadly, it may actually be true. People may not believe you. "Oh, I think you're misperceiving that," or "all families have stuff," or "I think you don't get it," or "I find that hard to believe," or "I've never had any trouble with them," on and on. Other people doubting you even further. So yeah, you're right. They may not believe you. But whether it is true or not that other people will not believe you, you may find that just hearing that comment, that no one will believe you, is enough to stop you from seeking help, seeking support, seeking clarity. You may just isolate further. Despite the grain of truth that may be there, the isolation can really impede healing and clarity. This is not only something that happens in narcissistic relationships, but any kind of abusive or traumatizing behavior, and particularly if someone who is really disempowered like a child is involved, no one will believe you. The two-mask cultivation of perpetrators and narcissists, a public face that people value and a private face of menace, manipulation, and gaslighting, is why narcissistic abuse and antagonistic abuse is such a unique space. Listen, if someone is clearly kind of an abusive, awful person to everyone, people will believe you and maybe even help you. But if the charming, charismatic, gracious, generous, pillar of the community, successful person is the one that's harming you, and they drop that bomb in there, it only reinforces what you suspect. Someone will believe you, but if they initially don't, and people you talk to initially doubt you, it can magnify the impact of the emotional abuse you're enduring and push you even further into isolation, and then you may never find that someone who will believe you. I hope that gives some clarity on a dynamic that I'm sure many of you have encountered in your toxic relationships, because it is a phrase that many of you may have experienced, and seeing what it is and what it does to you is really important in understanding how these relationships work. I hope that's helpful. I don't think we talk about this as a form of gaslighting enough. Thanks again.